computer's not working. Forgot to.
What?
Forgot to ask if you wanted these.
Yes, I do want all your paperwork from the slow car project.
Okay.
Sure.
Forgot to do that.
Okay, today we're going to learn a little bit about communicating again. We're going to learn about outlining for a paper or a presentation or anything like that. Then we're going to learn a little bit about giving presentations, oral presentations. And then you'll still have your homework for this week, numbers 1 and 2, which comprise like 50 different problems or more. But you're going to be working on some writing. Then on Friday we'll get on to some more writing techniques that are more really like the homework. The homework won't be due until next week, so you'll have the weekend to finish it. But today we're going to do outline. Outlining is essentially the organization of thoughts and ideas before you put together a presentation, before you write a paper, before you make a poster, anything like that. And we've all seen them in classes that we've taken. For example, you may have seen something like this, where they use this method of having a Roman numeral main topic 1, capital A subtopic 1, capital B subtopic 2, one detail, sub-details and so on and forth, and then you go on to main topic 2. And this is a great way to outline. This is often the method that I use for outlining, and a lot of people use it. So it's not a bad idea. There are many examples of this that you'll find online. For example, here we go. Where did it go? I lost it. So here we have another outline where we have our first major topic is pre-writing, second major topic is first draft, third major topic is revision. And so this outline is actually an outline of how to write a paper, which is a good outline to have, right? Or an outline of how to write maybe a presentation, right? So this is actually a really good a really good outline to have kind of under your belt. And we will talk about this a little bit later on too. In fact, I'm going to save that page for us for later. Let's take a look at a couple other things here really quick. See if we can find anything interesting. Outlining in Microsoft Word. Let's find a newer version of, here's a newer version of Alan's of Microsoft Word. Yeah, it's not all that new, dang it. Microsoft Word. Goodness, all these are old versions of Microsoft Word. We want a new version of Microsoft Word. Well, suffice it to say that Microsoft Word has outlining built into it. I'm just not seeing a great example of it shown here, unfortunately. So that if you start using the Roman numerals, it will automatically jump into outlining mode. We can actually go ahead and do it in Microsoft Word. I think they should have Word loaded on this computer. Here it is. So this is Microsoft Word 2010, which is a newer version of it. And if we start with the Roman numeral, let's call this My Outline. And we come down here and we do on I, capital I with a period and a space after it. It's automatically going to jump into outline mode. And to get out of that mode, you actually have to come over here and click on this little bar, or you have to right click and undo it. But it's a great little tool because I might put here introduction to mechanical engineering. Maybe I'm going to do a paper on mechanical engineering. And then if I press enter, it goes immediately to the second Roman numeral. But if I want to switch to a subtopic, I press the tab button, and it goes to my first subtopic, A. So my first subtopic might be history of mechanical engineering. And under history of mechanical engineering, maybe I want to cover things like the wheel, and maybe I want to, and I'm just hitting enter, and it takes me to the next thing here. Maybe I want to do the wheel, maybe I want to do the water pump. And then I go to the next one, and maybe I'm done with my subtopics and subtopics. So to go back up a level, I'm going to hit Shift and Tab, and it takes me back to the next level. So now I can go from history to maybe another topic that introduces mechanical engineering. If I want to go back again to another, up another level to create a new major topic or a new major section heading here, then I just Shift and Tab, hold Shift down and hit Tab again, and it goes back here. So I go to the next part of my outline, which might be education in mechanical engineering or something like this, right? Whatever it might be. So Microsoft Word, very good program for doing this, this outlining work in. And this is the first thing you should always do when you're writing a paper. The first thing you should always do is to begin an outline. It doesn't mean it's you only do it at the beginning. Your outline should kind of hang with you through most of the writing process. But particularly, this helps you to organize what you think the paper, where you think the paper is going to go. Helps you to organize your ideas. Helps you to get an idea for what you need to research, what you need to learn more about, what you already know about. It also will give you new ideas on where to go with the paper as you're figuring out your thoughts. It's going to help to lead you. It's going to organize your brain for you. So you have to do this when you're writing. I know that so many people don't. Most students, once they've figured out how to use a computer, they just sit down and they start typing. That's the most ineffective way to write, is to just type things. Some people are really good at it, actually, but it's still not very effective, especially when you're trying to write a persuasive paper or a persuasive presentation. you really need to organize your thoughts so that the people that are either reading this or listening to this presentation can be persuaded. If it's not organized, they'll be confused. You may not be confused reading your own writing, but other people usually are. So you really need to go above and beyond to organize your thoughts so that everybody understands them. Outlining is absolutely essential. Going back to this page that we first came to, this actually I would like you to go ahead and maybe make note of this page. It's blog.writeathome.com, and lots of good stuff here. There's lots of websites like this. This just happens to be the one that I found just now, and so I'm going to point you towards it. You can find other ones. But here they have 3 simple pre-writing strategies. The first one is free writing, which is just sitting down and writing. Like I said, many people are good at this, and when you're not sure what you're going to write about, it is a good technique. However, in engineering, that is usually never the case. We almost never don't know what we're going to write about. We almost always have a very specific thing we're going to write about. And so this free writing thing is not necessarily a good thing to even consider when you're doing engineering. When you're doing other types of writing, creative writing, writing a story, other things like that, this is a great technique. But let's stay away from it in engineering for the most part. This next part is called clustering, but it's also called brain mapping. And it is essentially a free-form way of writing down as many ideas and many things as possible and trying to connect them in an organized way. Okay? So you start with a major topic in the middle, you circle it, and then you start writing other things around it that pertain to it. And then when you think of other things that pertain to those things, you start writing them and you connect them with lines. Okay? So this is a good way to go from brainstorming to organization. You're trying to brainstorm all the ideas, all the things that you're going to put in this paper or this presentation, trying to write them all down, but you're not quite ready to write them down in order. So you write them down in kind of a free form on a big piece of blank paper, and you connect them with lines to start the organization. Once you have done this kind of a thing several times, you'll start to realize you don't need to do it as much. You can go straight to the outlining process. However, if you're doing something that is fairly involved, it's a good idea because this is a way to start the organization process without having to know exactly what you're doing. And then outlining comes after that, where you take this free-form idea that has got these, connections, and you put those connections together in an order that you're going to present them within your paper, within your presentation, however, whatever, right? So this is a good website, a good page on this website for teaching these writing techniques. This is just the pre-writing process. We haven't even gotten into writing the paper yet, okay? Just the pre-writing process. But it's extremely important, this pre-writing process. Once you've got an organization, once you have an outline, the hardest thing for most people to do is to write, okay? They sit down and they just think, oh, what's the perfect way to write this? And sometimes people will write and rewrite the same sentence 50 times without going on to the next sentence. Or they'll reorganize, they'll reorder the sentences in a paragraph, trying to get this paragraph just right. Not a good idea. After you're done organizing your thoughts, the best thing to do is to write the paper from beginning to end in a set period of time. Maybe 1 hour. Sit down and write the whole thing. And never rewrite a single thing. Never erase a single thing. Just write it. Just go through your outline, come up with a sentence for everything in your outline, and put it on paper. It's going to be ugly. It's going to sound like crap. It's going to read like a 4th grader wrote it. But you will be done with your rough draft. That's why it's called a rough draft. Then you go back through your rough draft and you start making notes. You start crossing things out. You might start making changes and you rewrite. You start all over again with your rough draft that you've marked up with a million different notes and a million different things, and then you rewrite it again. And you just go straight through. You don't stop and erase. You just go straight through and you write. And after you've done this process 4 or 5 times on a paper, you'll be done. And it sounds like a painful process. And it is. But it's much more effective than trying to get the paper right by writing and erasing and writing and erasing. It's much more effective. When you get good at it, you can write a complete paper in 1 or 2 rewrites. So you have a rough draft and you rewrite it once or twice and you're done when you get good at it. It doesn't even take that long to get good at it, honestly. But the rewrite is essential in writing a paper. You outline, organize your thoughts. You rough draft, get it on paper, and then you rewrite until it's correct. You rewrite and you rewrite and you rewrite. And you don't waste time trying to get any particular part of the paper perfect. You just rewrite the paper and read it. Have somebody else read it. Get some second opinions. Get some editing done by somebody. They can go through and make some corrections, make some suggestions, whatever. But then go back and rewrite and rewrite and rewrite. Absolutely essential. They actually have that here, kind of. They have their first draft, make it fast, get it down. Then they have revision. You're going to revise it for structure, content, support, point of view. Revise, and that's a rewrite right there. Then they have proofreading. Somebody goes through and proofreads it. And then you rewrite, right? And then if you're going to publish it, somebody's going to give you some more suggestions and you're going to rewrite. Up here, you might rewrite 2 or 3 times. Here, you might rewrite once or twice. You may rewrite just 1 time each time, but you're going to have rewrites and rewrites and rewrites. Absolutely essential. If you don't believe me, you will waste a lot of time and come up with a paper that is substandard. If you believe me, you will come up with the best work you've probably ever written. That's just the way it is. It is a proven fact that this method works better than any other for writing. So, that is how to organize a paper and how to write a paper in, 15 minutes or less. We are not going to spend a lot of time writing in this class. We're not going to write lots of papers, but we will do a little bit of writing. I haven't assigned you a writing assignment yet, but I will be doing so probably at the end of the day today. Actually, I'm going to go ahead and assign it now. So this is an assignment that is not in the syllabus, but will be added to the assignment for this chapter. In the chapter homework, you're going to do some rewriting of sentences. What I want you guys to do is I want you to pick a simple process, 10 steps or less, and I want you to make one of these mind maps that you saw here where you had this free-form map of ideas. I want you to make an outline of this process, and you're going to write a paper from this outline about how to go through this process. The process can be making a sandwich, it can be, setting an alarm, a new ringtone on my cell phone. I don't care what it is, but it's a process that should have 10 steps, between 5 and 10 steps, but no more than 10 steps. And you should be able to explain to somebody how to do this so that they don't need any additional information besides the paper that you write in the end. And you should have a mind map or one of these free-form clusters. You should have an outline. You should have a rough draft. You should have at least 2 revisions by the time you're done. Okay? I will send this out by email so that you know what this is, so you've got all this down. But it's a mind map, an outline, a rough draft, and at least 2 revisions. That's 5 things for one paper. Okay? And I would like you to record the amount of time that you spend on each one of these things. At the bottom of the page that you do each one of these things, do them each on a different piece of paper or different sheets of paper. Record the amount of time you spend doing them. Okay? I would like to know. Spending a lot of time is not necessarily better, right? This is an efficient process, and so I'm hoping that you can work through these things quickly and get good results. You can use any resources you want. You can have somebody else read your paper between revisions. You can have somebody proofread it for grammar or whatever else. But when you turn it in the end, I want it typed. That last one should be typed, and it should be a very well-written set of instructions, essentially, explanation of this process, so that I can sit down, read this thing, and do whatever it is you're explaining to me. Okay? So there's your first and maybe last writing assignment of this class. Okay. Now, the second thing that we're going to talk about today is how to present. When you're preparing a presentation, you're preparing it just like you would a paper. You do some free-form thoughts, you do some mind mapping, and then you do some outlining, and you do some actual writing and revising. But you're most likely going to do it in a program like PowerPoint. If you're not familiar with PowerPoint, we'll open it up here so that you can see it really quick. So here is a PowerPoint presentation. I remember when this was given last year, maybe. One of my students gave this PowerPoint presentation. And essentially, you're given templates where you can write on them, put in pictures, put in whatever you want to, lists. And then you can go through a slideshow. So in this particular case, this slideshow was recorded in PowerPoint, so we can just play it, I think. Let me see if I can actually play it. Play from the beginning. Well, kind of. So if I click on the screen, for example, it goes forward a slide, and you can use this with remote controls. And you can actually go backwards in the slideshow just using your up scroll. Notice that you can bring in not only pictures, but you can bring in animated GIFs. So this thing has this animated thing on the right side. And you can animate other things within it. You can bring in videos, and you can bring in links to websites and other things like that. You can put lots of things in these presentations. It's extremely versatile. However, it's not necessarily a good thing to make it more and more complex. Complexity in any kind of presentation or paper does not equal better. Sometimes simpler is better. And we're going to look at some examples of both ends of that equation. But we're not here to learn how to use PowerPoint, so I'm not going to really go into great detail with that. We're just here to understand a little bit about presenting things to people. And so to do that, I'd like to go to my favorite presenters online. How come I can't go anywhere? Let's just go. If I could spell, I'd be in good shape. That's not going to get me where I want to go. So there is an engineer who actually makes a living by doing PowerPoint presentations for people. This guy's name is Don McMillan. And in these PowerPoint presentations, he teaches people how not to use PowerPoint. And I think it's probably the best thing to learn first is the things not to do. So let's go ahead and watch this guy. See if we can get some volume going here.
Okay, this is what we don't want. This is typically called life or death by PowerPoint, right? We think in PowerPoint now. This is a true story. I was driving through Colorado a couple years ago. I hit a patch of ice on I-70 coming out of the Eisenhower Tunnel, going from 65, 70, maybe 90 miles an hour. And I started spinning at top speed, and my life flashed before my eyes, and I swear to you, it was in PowerPoint. And how bad has PowerPoint got? This is actually the number of PowerPoint presentations per day. They flashed before my eyes, and I swear to you, it was in PowerPoint.
right here, you're seeing a PowerPoint slide with so much stuff on it, you couldn't possibly get any information from it. And this is not abnormal. Okay, Bill Gates put up a slide like this in a presentation that he gave to the entire world about Windows 2000 or Windows 7, I think it was. The one that came right after XP. Vista. And you know what this did to PowerPoint? Crashed it. And it crashed Windows Vista at the same time. In this presentation he was giving on how great Vista was going to be. It was the worst ever presentation given by a businessman. Okay? You wonder why Vista never really got off the ground is because of one PowerPoint slide. The more crap you put on the slide, the harder it is to understand. And the harder it is for the computer to make it work. You had all kinds of animations and text and all this great information on how great Windows Vista was going to be and Windows Vista couldn't handle it. Okay? So don't overcrowd your slides. Don't put a lot of information on your slides, and don't over-graphic your slides. You don't need all this crap on there. Ideas are not about the amount of information you give. We have this problem in our society everywhere. We all think that the internet is such a great thing because there's so much information. That's not what makes the internet great. It has nothing to do with it. What makes the internet great is the ability to access valuable information from the field of information, right? If you can do that, then the internet's great. If you can't, the internet's worthless. And let me tell you, to most people, the internet is worthless because they don't know how to look for the one piece of information that's actually useful. All they know how to do is look for a billion pieces of information like this slide. Don't get caught up in more is better, because it's not. What you're looking for is those few things. Maybe it's just a list of ideas. Maybe it's just a picture or a couple of pictures. Maybe it's a single graphic or a couple of graphics. Maybe it's a combination of a little bit of text and a little bit of graphic. But you're looking for that simple thing that's going to really convey your idea, make it memorable, and help people to understand or convince them to see things your way or whatever it is you're trying to do. It's not usually about more. In fact, it's almost never about more.
And how bad has PowerPoint gotten? This is actually the number of PowerPoint presentations per day. Look at that. It's 43 million per day in 2007, 54 million 2008, 69 million this year, 88 million per day next year. Now, I looked at this chart. Look, that is growing, exponentially. I looked at this chart. Here's home foreclosures per year. You see, that's growing about the same way. I realized that PowerPoint actually caused the mortgage meltdown. So this is a thing I do called Life After Death by PowerPoint. Basically, don't do these things with PowerPoint. These are the things that people do that drive me nuts. And the only way to show them not to do this is to show them what not to do. So the biggest one I see, the most common PowerPoint thing, number one, people tend to put every word they're going to say on their PowerPoint slide. Although this eliminates the need to memorize your talk, ultimately makes your slides crowded, wordy, and boring, and you lose your audience's attention before you even reach the bottom of your first slide.
He is absolutely correct. This is the number one mistake made by presenters. Okay? I tell my students this every year. And every year, a week later, they come into class and they do this. Every year. Without fail. Did it happen this year, Kyle? In our engineering class? It did. We have another engineering class where the first week we do presentations. And I told them this. And they came back and did it. It happens every year. Why? Because it's easy. Because PowerPoint gives you the opportunity to write down all the information that you're giving to people. But that's not what PowerPoint is for. PowerPoint is to enhance what you're telling people, not to tell people what you're telling people. It's like people that come to a class and they have a book that they're going to teach from and they read from the book. What's the point of buying the book if you're going to read it to me every day, right? There is not a more boring way to go to a presentation than to have slides where people are reading information from them. And I see it all the time. I just went to a meeting of a bunch of educators in Lincoln a couple months ago, and that's exactly what they did. Supposedly these are teachers that are professional and know what they're doing, and that's what they did. They had these slides with so much text on them that I couldn't possibly read them in the amount of time they had them up there, except for the fact that they sat there and read them. So I did have the time, and I was falling asleep. Pointless, worthless, waste of time. If you're going to give a presentation like that, I guarantee you if I have the chance, I'm going to stand up and walk out. Because I'll just pick up the handouts that you gave that have the same slides on them and read them at home. It's much easier, much less boring, because I can watch a baseball game while I'm in it.
Second most common, font size is important. Size matters. Too small, and that's not good for anybody. On the other hand, too big, and you're looking at a moron. You just look like an idiot. Don't have your fonts moving. Keep your text stationary. There's nothing more annoying than text that does blinking. Don't have it blinking. Don't have it spinning. Don't have stuff flying around the screen. You drive people with ADD crazy. They're just like, oh, what's happening? Oh. Now, since I'm talking about fonts, people are really into fonts. I've noticed this. By the way, this is one of the best jokes that I know. Comic Sans and Helvetica walk into a bar. And ask the bartender for a drink, and the bartender says, sorry, we don't serve your type here. That kills at a font convention, guys. Oh, that's a good one. It's a type. I get it. The font you choose, be very careful. Everybody has their favorite font. The font you choose sends a message about who you are as a person. There's a long list of fonts. We pick one. That reflects our personality. We're sending an unspoken message. So, for example, if you choose Carrier New, it means you're organized and structured. Like to pretend you're still using a typewriter. If you choose Comic Sans, it means you think you're funny. And if you choose Times New Roman, it means you're lazy, apathetic, and unimaginative, and you always use the default.
Okay, I'm going to pause right there because he's making a joke, of course, on all three of those fonts. The last joke, though, Times New Roman is the default font in Word for a reason. Do you know what it is? It is by far the easiest font to read. If you want people to read something, you should use Times New Roman. It's an easy to read font because it is a serif font, which means it has lines on the bottoms and the middles and the tops of letters, and that guides your eye along the line. If you're writing a paper and you use a sans serif font, you will give the grader a headache, and your grade will go down, guaranteed. Because they won't be able to read your paper and will look unorganized. Even if you write the greatest paper that you've ever written, that anyone's ever written. If you use a non-serif font like Arial, you use an Arial font, people will be confused because they will be skipping lines, and it's subconscious. They don't even know they're doing it. They do not understand what you've written because they have to go back and read the sentence again because their eyes are skipping around. Okay? Times New Roman by far is the best font to write in if you're going to be writing lots of words with lots of lines and people need to read it and understand it. In a presentation, that's not always the case because you're not always putting lots of words and lots of lines. We just told you not to do that. So when you have fewer words, fewer lines of words, you can start to use sans serif fonts. Sans serif fonts are fonts that don't have these delineating features that help your eye to follow the line. Okay? Like Arial. Arial font is a very common. Tacoma is another one, I think. But anyway, they have these different names, but they have a much cleaner look. They look like a very clean font. And when you're doing a presentation, a clean font is very nice. Right up here, this is a sans serif font. It's probably Arial, or maybe Arial Bold or something. But notice there's no little thing on the bottom of the F. There's nothing anywhere. It's just very straight and blocky, right? And it's very clean looking. A great font for presentations. Don't mix up your fonts. If you're doing a sans serif font and you're using very few words in your presentation, stick with it. Don't change it. Don't change the size. Use the same size. In all your titles, use a slightly smaller size in any of your subtitles and a slightly smaller size in any of your text, and use the same font. Don't change the colors. Don't get all crazy with stuff. Make it simple.
If you choose Georgia, it means you speak with a southern
There's
accent.
another serif font.
If you choose Ariel, it means you like the Little Mermaid. Oh, a lot of Ariel people. If you choose Old English, it means you enjoy malt liquor. Didn't know this, did you know?
I think in this one he tells a slightly
We have a
racial
few more.
joke.
Helvetica, that means you're a mayonnaise lover. That's a stretch. I'll admit that is a stretch. Blackadder, that means you're an African-American accountant. That one requires some thought. Sorry. And if you like wingdings, it means you're a nerd and you have no life. Now, if you type in all small letters, some people do that, all small letters, that means you're quiet, shy, and unassertive. If you type in all capital letters, that means you yell a lot. Somebody over there. If you type small letters followed by capital letters, it means your cap lock is stopped on. Don't you hate when that happens? Usually going along for a while, you look up, oh, darn! And then finally, if you have a mix of capital letters and small letters, that means this is a ransom note and you are a kidnapper. Very hard to do. The fourth most common PowerPoint mistake, avoid excessive bullet pointing, only bullet key points, too many bullet points, and your key messages will not stand out. In fact, the term bullet point comes from people firing guns at annoying presenters. This slide, by the way, has crashed PowerPoint. There's a max about how many bullet points you can have.
That's about the maximum number you should ever have on a slide.
Animations. People love animations. That stuff goes
Difficult to remember more than 5 things.
Turns out if you're a visual learner, your effectiveness as a speaker will go up with more animations. But if they're easily distracted, they are not even paying attention to what you're saying. They're just watching the cool stuff. And there's regions to this graph. There's the simple but effective region, the active but confusing, the effective but boring, the active but ineffective, the dull but static region, the busy but useless region over there, the ADD only region there up in the corner, the useful musing, the stupid confusing, the double triangle, the hyper triangle, the sleepy square, the dizzying pentagon, and then everything else is just grouped into what's called pointless motion.
You can do all these things. You can do all of these things in PowerPoint, but it really is a waste of time because it doesn't.
Now, one of the biggest dangers today, and I'm telling you, I hear it more and more every time I hear a conversation, is what I call SAOD, or severe acronym overload disorder. Have you heard people talk?
I'm going to get away from
Press
this.
you with their that I use in my acronyms. Here's a bar chart of the number of bars, visits versus age throughout my 40, allow one on 50, and then
People love to start playing around with the way they're going to.
My wife Laura reports this on Apple. Here's a pizza pie chart. Here's your pot pie chart. There's a better pot pie chart. Here's a pie chart with values of pi for the nerds out there. You got 3.14159, 22.7, 3.14, and pi itself. We have a pie chart. I was thinking, why don't we have a cake chart? So there's a cake chart.
So the point he's trying to make here is that PowerPoint has so many abilities, but most of them are worthless. Most of them do not enhance the presentation at all. So keep it simple. Keep it very simple. These last 6 minutes we have, I'm going to show one of the best presenters of all time, Steve Jobs. Steve Jobs was not a great businessman. He failed at business time and time again until he finally kind of got his act together when he got a little older and put together a company called Pixar, and then came back to Apple, the company that he first started, and he almost ran into the ground. He really did run it into the ground, and was able to apply some principles that he learned running Pixar at Apple again and bring them back from the brink. But Steve Jobs, as when he came back into the business world and started making waves again, he actually became well known as a presenter. Let's actually look at one that you're probably familiar with, the original iPhone. So this is 2007, the original iPhone launch, the presentation that he gave there. That's not Steve Jobs.
This is a day I've been looking forward to for 2.5 years.
Okay, now, first off, what do we see?
Apple logo.
He's got a simple slide. One picture, very striking, something that's memorable. Everybody knows the Apple logo. What do you notice about him?
Me.
He's dressed in a very
Casual.
dark, just a dark shirt, pair of jeans. This is a conference of computer programmers that are used to sitting at home in their underwear at their kitchen table working on their computer. So nobody's really going to be dressed much more than this. So he's dressing to his audience. Would it be a little uncomfortable if he came out in a three-piece suit for these people that are normally in their underwear? Yeah, because they don't dress that way. So you need to dress to your audience, you need to behave like your audience. He's not standing still. He's going to walk around. He's going to address his audience face to face. Okay? What is the background color of this slide?
Black.
Black or a dark blue or something. But it's dark. And it turns out that that is a very effective way to present. It is much easier for the human eye to pick out something bright from a black background than vice versa. When you have a white background and black comes out of it, your eyes actually have to work a little bit harder. So he actually always did black backgrounds or dark backgrounds with things that came out in bright colors. Not too bright though. Red, try to avoid. Yellow, try to avoid. Okay? Bright neon greens, never. But, you know, the primary colors excluding red, good idea. So anyway, we'll move on here.
Every once in a while, a revolutionary product comes along that changes everything. And Apple has been, well, first of all, one's very fortunate if you get to work on just one of these in your career. Apple's been very fortunate. It's been able to introduce a few of these into the world. In 1984, we introduced the Macintosh. It didn't just change Apple.
Simple text, just the date. That's all that he needed. And he's going to talk about the Apple Macintosh. Simple image. Background color, dark. Simple to easy to see.
It changed the whole computer industry. In 2001, we introduced the first iPod. And it didn't just change.
I'm going to move down a little bit here.
It's a widescreen revolutionary products in this class.
Okay, so now he's introducing
The first one
the iPhone. Notice what he does.
is a widescreen iPod with touch controls.
Text and image. Okay? Simple. Nothing more than necessary. This is not going to be a slide when you do
The
this
second
engineering presentation.
is a revolution.
An engineering presentation is going to have more than just a single line of text, but you should minimize it to the absolute minimum. Never include information that you can't just talk about or is just not necessary as repetitive. Just put the essentials. If you have 4 things that are essential pieces of information, do a bullet in the list of 4. Or do an image with arrows pointing to an object that shows those 4 things, or whatever. But limit it. Don't put extra information. Very simple, very minimalist is the
Revolutionary mobile phone. And the third is a breakthrough internet communications device. So, 3 things. A widescreen iPod with touch controls, a revolutionary mobile phone, and a breakthrough internet communications device.
So he's gone from 1 slide each to now 3 things on a slide, And he's actually using the presenting software to his advantage here. Notice what he does next.
An iPod, a phone, and an...
He is using animation, but is it annoying? Is it making a point? What is the point he's making?
Presenting an iPhone?
Well, the point he's making is that these three devices that he's just talked about are actually one device, right? It's a beautiful use of animation, and it's really the only time he uses animation in this whole thing, where he takes these three things he's talked about, puts them into one, and that's what gets everybody excited. Notice the excitement in the room.
internet communicator, an iPod, a phone. Are you getting it?
So he's selling something. He's selling the idea of a device, and he's actually selling the device. They had 500,000 orders, pre-orders. This thing wasn't even due for 6 more months. They had 500,000 pre-orders by the time this presentation was over. And in fact, they actually had to stop, I think, the presentation because so many people got on the internet to order them that the internet at this building shut down. They had to stop the presentation and say, wait a second, we need you to get off your computers because we need the internet for the presentation, because they were doing demonstrations on the internet. Okay? This is a very effective presentation. It's not an engineering presentation. We're going to have more data. We're going to have more information on a slide. But this is the extreme end of presenting simply. And by far, I think, the most effective presenter in the past 30 years, 20 years. People loved to go to this. They lined up, they paid money to go to this thing. It's not like he had to invite people in. You had to stand in line to buy a ticket for $4,000 or $5,000 to go to this talk. And what did you get out of it? You got to get a talk and order a phone that cost a lot of money. You got to spend more money, right? So this is a great presentation. It's simple, straightforward, and it uses the software to make points. It doesn't just use the software to put all your words up there so you can read them, or to put as much information as possible up there so it looks like you know a lot of things. It's there to enhance the presentation. So you have your homework. I will send out an email with that as well. And then Friday we will talk about a little bit more about writing in particular so that you can finish up your homework over the weekend. Have a great day.